Hey everybody, this is Conrad Agermal with Agile IT. Welcome to another Tech Talk. Today we have Kevin Martins here from Microsoft. One of the things that we talk a lot about with our customers is the relationship that we have with Microsoft, and they've done a great job in the last year, really around reshifting the resources and alignment they have with us as a partner, including making sure that we can get not just Kevin but other peers and other people within Microsoft to kind of be a guest with us. To both share a little bit of information, what we're going to go through here today, and more. So really the topic today was really around combating, shadow IT, and the tools and the services that we'll talk about that Kevin will go through is around, the enterprise mobility plus security suite, and a key component of that is the cloud app security. So one of the reasons why I think that this is such an important topic, and I'll just talk for a couple minutes and then really give it out to Kevin to show the really cool aspects of it, is one is, there is the IT director, the CIO that's out there, and being responsible for all the information within your business. You're going to get asked to protect things and provision things and secure things, but how do you know that you've done it all? So one of the questions you don't really want to get from the board or from the CEO or whomever is, why am I hearing about these other applications out there that we're not securing? Like, were you aware of these things? Well, so one is awareness, right, of what is happening within the business that you may not even be aware of. The second is, if we can be proactive, find out about those things for yourself, and then come up with a strategy to find out, like, hey, why are you guys using these types of services? You can work with them to say, you can still use them, but let's connect them with our SSO and so on and so forth, and kind of get ahead of that strategy, if you will. At the same time, they may not know, so that they're doing something inappropriate. So one scenario, and I think Kevin may or may not go into, but really it's about the thing I like to talk about, which is good people doing good things that end up doing something bad. So you might have somebody that's really good who's saying, like, hey, I want to collaborate with my team. I'm a new person that's here, and I need a way to collaborate with them. And where I came before, I had this really cool technology that we're able to use, and it could be Box or Dropbox. And so I really want to do something good, and a good person. I'm trying to work with my team or a partner, and so I'm really trying to use these services. But inadvertently, I've gotten the information within my organization and put it outside. So now it's not being managed or managed for compliance or secured. People get offboarded or leave the business. Their information's not there. So somebody good trying to do good things that has some bad result. The other part of that is, there's another scenario where a customer had, a person in the business leave the business, turn off their account, turn off their access, thought everything was great, and then found out through cloud app security that there was actual share that was created that was syncing their business data with their private data. No idea that this was happening until we're able to see, through the logs, that these types of issues are happening. So visibility into these services is super, super key, around, cloud app security. So those are just a couple of little ideas of why it's so important to know what's out there, and to figure out what's happening. So that's when we talk about shadow IT or demystifying it. Those are kind of the key points that I like to bring up. So with that, let me turn it over to Kevin, who's going to show you a little bit more, talk a little bit about it, and we just want to have an open, dialogue. Ask whatever you like, so that we can, help educate what's going on, or any kind of questions you might have around technology. So, Kevin, take it away.
Yep. Hey, thank you, Conrad. I appreciate it. And thanks for the intro. So I'm going to go through cloud application security, cloud app security from Microsoft. So just to further on the example of what Conrad was talking about is, let's say you've got what happens commonly in the environment when we talk about shadow IT is, let's say you've got a new HR director, a human resources director that comes into the environment, and they came in from somewhere else where they'd been for several years, and they were all using some, you name it, cloud collaboration application, right? It's a freebie out there, but this person, he or she really liked it and told his or her new direct reports of a dozen people, hey, we're going to go ahead and use this, right? Because they weren't aware of any other applications you may have provisioned on the network, such as Teams or Skype for Business or something else that you pay for, right? So you look at that and that scenario, and you may not hear about it for 6 months until one of your technicians comes back from someone at the HR department who logged in a trouble ticket. You went over and visited, or one of your techs did, and they came back and said, "Hey, they're using this cloud application. I don't know what this thing is." So now you've got a problem. Now you go over and you look at it and you ask them, "Okay, what are you using this for?" And they say collaboration. We send information back and forth over this app, right, in the cloud. But come to find out, the information from the HR department is things like social security numbers or some other PII type information, right? Well, now you've got to wonder, where is that data going? Where is it hosted? Is it sent encrypted? And is there now a breach of any type of data I need to be concerned about? So you don't know just what you don't know, right? So the cloud application security and shadow IT, this is a great way to discover, using your own firewall logs, exactly what's going on in the environment. So I'm going to go through for a few minutes and just demo a couple of things that you can configure on here as we look at shadow IT, and then I'll segue over to a couple of policies that you can set up that are canned policies, where you can get into the custom area, where you can look for things, anomalies going on in the environment, such as large file uploads, large file downloads that's inconsistent with my own persona, based on what I do. Or maybe I'm found to have typically logged in from these 10 IP addresses throughout the country, since I'm a traveling user of an environment, but all of a sudden I log in from a country in Africa or the Middle East or Asia, well outside of the norm, right, of what I've been doing. You want to be alerted to something like that. So we can look at some policies like that as well. So how you access this is, I've got, this is a demonstration tenant within Office 365. It's got very fictitious data in here, no users, and there's nothing real in here. So I'm going to, I launch the application portal. I go into search and investigation. I go into productivity app discovery, and then I launch the cloud app security area, this button here. This launches a new window, which I've already got open here. So what I've got here is I've already loaded up a day's worth of logs from, again, a fictitious environment, from a Sonic wall, right? We can support not just Sonic walls, but about at least 20 different flavors of firewalls, from the Ciscos to the Palo Altos to the WatchGuards, and even though those that aren't listed, there's a custom log format that we can try to import as well, and we can manipulate logs as needed, to match the import process. So a day's worth of logs for small to medium-sized business takes a couple hours to parse through, and as a result, you get a dashboard similar to this, right? Where we've got, as I look at this, we actually have cataloged quite a bit of information on about 16,000 applications out there in the cloud. And I'll run through that here in just a few moments. But this is, based on that catalog, that's where this data is coming from. So we can look at this and say, okay, of those logs, there's 293 applications that have been found, across just over 2,100 IP addresses by 457 users, and so on and so on. But that's all great. But what I always zoom in on when I look for shadow IT, I want to see where the dangers are, right? So as I look at this, let me click on this here. As I look at the map down below, we've got information on IP addresses and where data is coming to, or coming from or going to, right? So we can see here, okay, this is a US-based business, but let's say, for example, it's a small medical facility within the US, right? It serves a regional area somewhere in the Midwest. They're in Iowa somewhere, right? So in here, we can say, okay, I've got 239 instances, apps in the US, but I've also got all these other apps here. I've got one going to Ireland, 12 to the UK, one to Poland, Israel, Egypt, India, and then I get to China, or Russia, and I say, I'm a small business over here. Um, I don't think I should have any traffic going here, but let me see what that is. So I'm just going to click on this dot here. And again, this is my data just being presented back to me in a different way. But I look at this and I say, I did have this antivirus client around. I thought I got rid of all of these instances. I moved over to Symantec or Windows Defender or something like that. Why is that still here? Okay, so I'm going to click on that. I don't know much about it, for example, but I do. Most of us do here. We recognize the name. Okay, it's headquarters in Russia. It's got it's been patched for the Heartbleed. Uh, it's got a valid cert on it. Does not support SAML, but look at the compliance categories. It's not ITAR, it's not SOX, it's not Safe Harbor. There's GDPR in here now as well, with that being a very hot topic, right? So that's interesting. But let's go back here for a moment. And what else do I have? Instead of looking at the map, right? I can now look at I can look at all of the apps, all 457 of them in here. Actually, I'm sorry, 293. And I look at these and I say, each one is scored. Well, the score is great. I see 10s down here. It's on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most trusted. We've got Microsoft apps in here. We've got Cisco, IBM, it's Concur, Travel App, Adobe, and the normal players, the big players on the web. You look at this and you say, okay, well, I want to look at this a different way. My risk score of 0 to 10, I want to scope this down. I want to get down to the 0 to 3. Again, what's interesting? What should I be more concerned with in my environment that I don't know about that someone has installed here? I'll wait for that to filter through. And up comes a couple of apps that I may not have ever heard of. Well, on these apps that I haven't heard of, I can click on each one as soon as it comes up here. Yep, we'll come back to that. Not sure why it's not loading up there. But I could click on each one and I could get to each one of those categories that are in there. Is it GDPR compliant? Does it have the Heartbleed patch to it, and so on and so on? But here's a couple that came up here in the screen. Okay, so Copper Egg, I had not heard of them before. What is it? Well, it's got a score of 4 overall, 5 in the general, 8 in the security area, but 0 in compliance. Again, going back to my example, I'm a medical facility. I must be concerned with HIPAA regulations, right? I've got something in here that could be, provide the potential for a data breach, right? So I've got to go in here and look at that and say, let's find out who's using that. Let's see where that is. So I click on the name, right? And I find I've got 18 active users. Why? Is this an infection? Is it malware masked as something else, right? Where is it, right? So the users will populate here in just a moment. Again, there's a lot of data to parse through. And then I know I've got it on 13 different IP addresses, right? There's not much traffic going up. So, okay, I'm somewhat satisfied on that, but let's go ahead and let's look at it still, even on that. Who are my users? Because this is an Office 365 integrated application, I know who these users are, right? I can go right down and now I can create a list and go out and visit each one of these people and figure out, okay, did you put this on here, or is it some type of a drive-by infection that I need to now be concerned about, right? So as we look at that, again, we can look at if a user doesn't populate for some reason, I've got my IP addresses on where this is coming from in my internal environment, and I can correlate that back using DNS or DHCP services, right? So again, here's the info on the app. Okay, a lot of good detailed information in there. So what's unique about this area is there are plenty of other reporting tools out there, other firewall-based reporting tools, from the SonicWalls to the WatchGuards to the Palo Altos, the Cisco's, and so forth. They're all very good. But this provides a different way of looking at the data. There's one from one of the vendors where it'll show you IP addresses that are active in the environment, right? Like where the data is going. But great, you've got an IP address. You don't know what that is. You don't know anything about it. Whereas here, I've got over, again, 16,000 different applications that are cataloged with all this fantastic information in here, right? So when you think back to Shadow IT, how do I discover just what's on my network and then zoom in and try to figure out, okay, what is it? Do I need to be concerned about it? What's the overall score? What's the weight of it? And then who is using it and why, right? So as I look through here, I can do a couple other things with this information. I can say, hey, I want to use this type of tool to alert me for some anomalous behavior. If I'm interested in monitoring for ransomware activity, I want to know what's going on my network. Is if someone's been infected, does it have the capability to spread rampantly through my environment? I want to create an alert for that, right? Potential ransomware activity. So this is a policy template that I can create and activate on the environment. So if I go click on it, I can rename it to whatever I like, right? And then you can see what's going on here. What it's looking for are these popular ransomware extension files, right? So if we see anything like that, we can take an alert. We can send an alert as an email, send it as an attachment, or we can start to block this type of activity. When you think about something like a OneDrive sync, OneDrive from Microsoft, right? If you launch some type of a ransomware on your system, accidentally, of course, right? All of a sudden, all of your files are all encrypted on that desktop or on that laptop. And then OneDrive will naturally sync those files up to the cloud. You want to be able to block that, and this is a way to do it. You also want to be able to be alerted by it, by something so vicious like that. You want to get that alert right away. So maybe it's not an email, maybe it's a text message to a number of people, maybe an on-call person or something, to log in here and take a look at the logs and figure out what exactly is going on, right? There are a couple of other templates in here, and there's also plenty of room for customized templates as well. What about a mass download by a single user, right? So something else that's unique about this is that for the first 2 weeks that the application is set up in the environment, it becomes active. It's actually watching, it's monitoring over a period of 2 weeks for general user activity. It's building up personas for each one of the users that are in your environment. So it knows, hey, on average, Kevin downloads or uploads about 50 megs worth of data per day. But I can set a policy here that says, hey, if he does, all of a sudden 500 megs or a gig, put an alert on that, right? That might be suspicious. Is that someone that's breached his credentials and that's gone in and is now downloading the entire contents of his OneDrive? Or maybe that download is going to a suspicious IP address, right? There's different types of alerts like that you can set up on here. Maybe it's a risky new app that was installed here. One that maybe have a score of 0 to 5, right? That you want to be aware of and get out there and start to talk with people. Hey, did you know you had this? And maybe, yes, I did. And here's why I installed it. Oh, okay, but did you know we had this application that corporate IT sponsors and that we fund and we install for everybody to use? Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you. I'll start to use that. And then you can take off this risky app, right? So it gives you awareness of what's going on at all times as well. So with that, I'll go back to the dashboard here, and I'll ask if there's any questions on this product or any questions on Shadow IT and more about what that is and what we see and how this tool can help you figure out what's going on in your environment.